right, so let's begin like in the middle. I want to talk about your path to leadership. What did that look like for you professionally within the industry?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate that I've surrounded myself with very strong mentors, really people who wanted to see my success happen. And it didn't always happen like that. I was originally born and raised in New York City, grew up on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and basically, it was just my mother and I growing up. So I had all the attention. I was successful in whatever I tried to do. So I didn't really think I needed mentorship. I thought I just had it. And it took me quite a while to learn that that's not how it's done. You need to listen to other people. You need to make them feel valued. You need to hear their insights and appreciate another point of view. And my mentors, lucky for me, did not give up on me. And they beat me up on a regular basis about, you got two ears and one mouth and utilize it that way. And that really sort of gave me the opportunity to transform into the leader that I am today now, where it's more about getting the best out of your people and not telling your people what you need from them.
Now, that is that is a massive lesson to learn, but it starts with asking for help. And I would assume that when you started, I remember the first time I asked for help. It was a really successful chef in LA. We competed in the same cuisine and kind of the same area of town. We had the same demo. And he just smoked me every week, every month, every year. He was just way busier. And I sat down with him. His name was Neil Frazier. And I sat down with him and I was like, "Hey, what about this? What about that? How do you do this?" And we had like a really granular conversation. And he gave me the keys to the city. How surprised were you when you started this path towards mentorship? How willing people were to give you their wisdom?
You know, it's interesting. So there's two parts to it. It's the people who are giving to you and the people who are receiving from you, right? The people who are giving to you are already your mentors, your leaders, and you're trying to hear them and listen to them, but you have to find your style. And then you have the people who you're trying to lead, who you need to listen to what you're doing, but they've been hearing you in one certain way for X amount of time prior to you finally waking up and learning the right way to do it. And that was the struggle for me, right? It's taking people who you've worked with for 5, 10, 15 years and like doing a on them about your style and all of a sudden they're like what's going on, or they remember how you were, or they think it's going to change on you. And that's what you have to get through. For me, I've been part of Lettuce Entertain You now for 30 years. It's not like I was getting up out of one job and starting with an entire new group of people and somewhere else in the world. I might have been in a different concept with a couple of different people, but the leadership, the main people in the organization, saw me for who I was for so long. And I made a decision. This is going back to, you know, it might have been, God, I don't remember what year it was now. It was late in the two somewhere in there. I took a course called Own the Room, which was basically how to speak in front of people, right? How to own that room because my voice was getting lost. People didn't care what I had to say. They just thought it was me just spewing what I thought was best for me, not for the organization. And that vulnerability in front of 400 people who I've never met in my life before over a crash course 3 days really helped me find my voice and sort of learn how to get through to people. I shouldn't say that, not learn how to get through to people, learn how to have myself heard.
Now, did that start your path on continual education?
One, so we're going to get down and dirty here now and deep in the personal life, right? But I joined Lettuce Entertain You in 1990, and in 2000, my mother passed away. And when that happened, my mentor, who's now the CEO of the company, Kevin Brown, really pushed therapy on me. He really thought it was important for me to have somebody to talk to. And I've been working with the same person now for almost 25 years, turned more into, a business executive life coach. And I would not be where I am without the guidance and insight into how to understand situations. And, I'm a big proponent of therapy. Not everyone believes in it, but the biggest gift that I've gotten out of working with somebody is you have a place to dump your garbage, right? An unbiased place to just let it out and then forced to look at that garbage The old adage is your trash is somebody else's treasure. Well,
Mhm.
when you spew out your garbage, everything that's got you screwed up to somebody who wants to listen, they help you see it, that it's not garbage, that there's always a lesson to be learned. There's always a better way to do it. There's always another angle to achieve. And I've been very fortunate to be given and have been given second, third, or fourth opportunities with people. And now I don't need that. Now I can hit it out of the park on the first try with most people.
Isn't it so interesting? Like when you look at the trajectory of your life, especially in our business, especially when you work in a large organization like you do, and you see people excelling and people floundering, and I'm sure there's a bunch of people just kind of floating in the middle. And it's so easy to compare. But the race is really with yourself,
Uh,
right? Like and I know it's like a bullshit adage and all of that, but it is 100% true that everything and everyone that is holding you back is you.
so I swim in the mornings. I swim 3 times a week, over 2 miles each time. And there's always someone in the lane next to you. And I start to swim and I'm a competitive guy and I'm like, I need to catch the person. But I don't know how long they're going to swim for or how good of a swimmer they are. And eventually you wake up and you're like, swim your stroke, let them swim their stroke. And in the restaurant industry, what was so interesting to me pre-pandemic, the restaurant industry was extremely siloed. It was all about how can I beat you? What are you doing and how can I do it better? And when the pandemic happened and none of us knew what we were doing, right? We were all building the plane as we were flying it. Everybody opened the doors and said, "Here's what I'm trying. What have you tried? How can I help? What do you need?" Right? We banded together. And that has really sort of been, I think, the crux of the silo disappearing and the race being, crossing the finish line together now, as opposed to who can I beat and put out of business.
I have written here the next question I was going to ask is what is your strongest quality as a leader? But I want to take it in a different direction just because I think it would be more interesting. I did like a lot of research on you. And so I'm going to tell you what I think your strongest quality as a leader is. And I want to hear your reaction. You're not a corporate drone. You have an incredibly high tolerance for risk, which is not true of most corporate executives. Like to an entrepreneurial degree, to I would argue an obscene degree in our industry. In an industry where everybody does the same stuff day in and day out. You have taken exceptional risks, especially as it relates to marketing, social media, branding, web3. Talk to me about how you're able to reconcile that within the confines of a larger organization.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. And I appreciate the accolades on what you think the strong points are. So, Let Us Entertain You is really a university, it's a learning center for entrepreneurs, right? The way Lettuce is structured is it's a 50-year-old company with, when we've created in the 50 plus years now, over 200 or 300 different concepts. And it was always brought up that whatever concept you're working on, that's your focus. And how are you going to make that concept the best it can be? And as I said, both Kevin Brown, the CEO of Lettuce, and Rich Melman, our founder, have been very kind in teaching me how to be an entrepreneur. Now, as you and whether it's been good or been bad, the first half of my career was working on concepts that had no money, concepts that were not doing well. I was always brought, it wasn't ones I started, I was always brought into a failing concept, and my job was to turn it around. Well, when you don't have any money, when you have no access to capital, then it becomes, okay, how am I going to do this? Right. And you become a risk taker. And I've been very fortunate that I've had people who have supported the opportunities. Then in 20, private equity, Valor Equity Partners got involved to help fund WowBow's growth. John Shulkin, who's my partner out of Valor, who's the chairman of WowBow, really gives me guidance, but lets me go with what I think is right. And my big turning point, my biggest risk, my aha moment to go and try more. We were building a restaurant. I was building 7 outposts in Minnesota over a 10-week period. And in one of them, there was this huge wall, like, I don't know, a 40-foot wall, 10 or 15 feet high. And I'm staring at this wall. And I called up Kevin Brown at the time and I said, I think the wall needs to be green, like Kermit the Frog green. And he could have said anything. And his response to me was, it's just paint. And if you break it down into that and you're willing to admit that I was wrong and fix it quickly, it allows you to be a little more of an entrepreneur. It allows you to take those risks. It allows you to be, you know, forgiven to a degree, right? Forgiven by your customers, forgiven by your employees. The other thing is you have to be willing to take on the headaches. In 2010, I started using self ordering kiosks. Sounds so mainstream right now because everybody's got them. But in 20, it was airports, bank machines and movie theaters. There were no other self ordering kiosks. And, I was there day in and day night next to the employees when people had questions and what was going to be the headache. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun taking the risks. It's been a lot of pain taking the risks, but the rewards, it's all about risk and reward. Does the risk outweigh the reward? Does the reward outweigh the risk? And that's how you have to make these decisions.
Well, it also you seem to have like a really interesting thesis here in the way that it's a guess for the most part. It's non-permanent. You try it because you don't see a lot of that in our industry, right? You don't see a lot of A and B testing, especially when it comes to small independents or people because you don't have a lot of money. And so you spent the first half of your career working the way I think a lot of small independents do, right? So every risk you take pulls capital and bandwidth that could be otherwise allocated to yourself or to a more profitable endeavor. But you seem to take a lot of the pressure off by saying, if it doesn't work, we'll do something else.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to, there's the old adage people used to say you have to fail quickly, fail fast, or be willing to make changes. Look, you gotta see the bigger picture, right? And restaurant people, no disrespect to anybody out there, because I'm one too. We are not we're not tech savvy, right? Any technology running a restaurant was not made by a restaurant person. It was
Sure.
made by someone else, and we had to adapt our business to fit this because we saw the value in it. So it's more about that's the difference, right? If you see this online ordering is the best thing in the world and I want to turn this on, but it doesn't work for what I'm doing, then you have two choices. You don't do it or you have to adjust your business because you can't change the technology, right? And I've sort of taken the play like, okay, how can I get this to work? And I've also been an early adopter of technology. And by being an early adopter, you can get buy in from the creators. They want your feedback because they want to make their product better for the next person. So if you take it on early and you have someone who's willing to be agile, then it's like, okay, let's try this. You know what? I need this to work this way. Can it do that? And they'll make changes on the fly. And yeah, it's a headache today and it's less headache tomorrow. And by day 4, you don't need the Advil, but you know, you got to be willing to put in the work to make it do what it's supposed to do.
Well, it also gives you the ability to go around the competition. Even though I know you're very competitive, your exploits in dark kitchens and Web3, I mean, you're going to places that other people simply aren't.
Well, the reason why we're doing that is we've done the other thing already, right? You have all these companies who are now experimenting, like I said, with self-ordering kiosks. Like 12 years ago, I did that. So we're going to do. We launched literally, excuse me, today, right, May 17th for the listeners, our digital collectibles, our foray into Web3 and NFTs. 2 years from now, everybody's going to do it, and they're going to do it based on the feedback I gave to the infrastructure. Right, we're going to shape the way it's working to make it easier for the next guy, but I'll be light years ahead. And when they start doing that, I'll be onto something else. We have hot food vending machines in 4 states now. We have 30 machines deployed around the country doing hot food out of it. You mentioned the dark kitchens. 36 months, we've done 700 locations in the US
I
and Canada.
know. That's
You know,
bananas.
and look, don't get me wrong, it's work. I mean, when the pandemic started, we had maybe 11 people in our home office. We're up to close to 26 right now. We've had incredible growth. We need the resources. And it's a team win. I appreciate that I get to speak to you and that you talk about the accolades and the risks I take. The team takes on the headache. I say this is what we should do. They got to figure it out.
What's the framework you use to test a new concept? I think one of the biggest struggles entrepreneurially is figuring out like what is an opportunity and what is a distraction.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the comment I said about risk and reward. So just to back up, you mentioned concept. To me, a concept is a whole new restaurant idea. I'm taking it your concept is another entrepreneurial step
Yeah,
in the business,
absolutely.
right? Yeah, okay. So it's risk and reward. Like what can that idea garner for you, right? So for me, the vending machines is a great example, right? We put these vending machines, the goal is to get them on college campuses, military bases, 24/7 operations, police stations, hospitals, manufacturing plants. Now, am I going to sell 1,000 items out of that machine in that day? Absolutely not. The machine only holds 68 units, but you get introduced to it. Then, when you go home and you open up your Uber Eats, your DoorDash, or whatever it may be, and you see Wow Bao, you remember the food. We have 6 airports across the country. They do incredible volume, incredible business, and they are the best live action, tasty billboards you can ever have. So it's what does this do versus does that do? I got involved, concept, we got involved in social media and we joined Twitter. No one knew what Twitter was. We didn't know what we were doing, but we were able to connect with people and have a conversation. And then that's how we started doing social media on a bigger front. We weren't blasting everything as billboards and advertising like a lot of other people did because that's how they thought social was. We learned it was a two-way conversation. And if you think about the restaurant industry, hospitality is two-way. It's not one way. And so when you take on these initiatives, you have to find the way to get that feedback from the guest and how to give feedback back to the guest and have the dialogue. That's why we turned on this NFT promotion, right? We're doing this right now so we can get members, people who want to join us and have the conversation, have access to us, as opposed to someone who's buying our food and we don't know anything about them and how to help engage with them.
Well, and I think you bring up a great point. I've believed for quite some time that the industry at large is doing social media wrong. They're using it to
More than the
advertise
industry, lots of industries are doing it.
100%. And they're using it to sell as opposed to share. There's not enough engagement, there's not enough authentic communication. And I think that one of the reasons is it's a lot easier to sell than it is to share. It's a lot easier to post a beautiful photo of food and say, "Hey, please come in this weekend," than it is to say, "This is what I believe and this is what I'm
Yeah,
working."
but I agree with you. 100% it's easier to do the beautiful photo. However, it's also dangerous in this climate to try to have a regular conversation, right? We all have personalities and that's what makes all of us different and all of us fantastic. And I'm a very sarcastic person. New York City, I like to have the sarcasm. If you're representing the brand voice, and I ran all the social for 6 years, 28, I hired someone to do social. I'm now on my third or fourth social person in the last 6 years for numerous different reasons. But you're giving your brand voice to somebody, and that person, it's their job. They don't want to say the wrong thing to damage your brand, and I certainly don't want them to say the wrong thing. And in this time that we have of cancel culture, or everybody has an opinion, it's hard to do anything but sell. You know, I used to have the most fun. My favorite night of the year to be on Twitter as Wow Bao was Oscar night. I loved Oscar night. I loved the Grammys, right? You sit there and you would talk. The VMA Awards was like the end all be all, right? You comment on who's with who's wearing what. Oh my God, did they just say that, right? You do that now and you say, I can't believe he or she is dressed like blank. You could destroy your brand. So it's hard to be part of social media now and do anything but sell because everybody can say something, and that makes it difficult. You have to find the brand ambassadors and you have to get them to say it for you. That's the true win in social media as a brand. Identify with people. I'm not talking about influencers you're paying for. I'm talking about your best guests, your people who want to be part of you. Have real good dialogue with those people and let them scream from the rooftops how great you are. Let them do the selling. Let them stand up if somebody wants to argue with you on social and stand in and say, no, this brand is the real deal. It's hard. It's very hard.
Let's talk about delegation because you brought up something that I think so many people face. So you do social media, you do it for years and years. You're really happy with your performance because you're doing it, right? And then you hire someone else to do it. This is what we all do, right? And so you delegate it to someone else. And this person's supposed to be better than you at this, but they're shit, right? They just don't get it. They don't get you. They're not doing the same quality job you are. And so the compulsion, and I think what most independent owners and operators do is they take it back, right? You're fired, Geoff. Get out of here. It's easier for me to do it myself than it is to teach you or go through the trouble to hire someone else. And it's a trap, right? Because then you're always doing the stuff that you're good at, and you never find the person that's better than you at it. But it's so much easier to just fire and reconsume the responsibility. How do you avoid that trap?
The part of the trap that you're forgetting is when you fire the person and you take it back on, you can't do anything else.
Right.
That's the trap, right? Now, look, I say this is a great example. The old Jeff from 10 years ago would have fired you and taken on. And then I'd be working, 23 out of 24 hours and doing everything, and we wouldn't grow. We literally would not grow. The person that I've morphed into and learned is my job. And you know how I really learned it? I'm not giving enough credit here. Is by becoming a father. I have a 24-year-old daughter, I have a 12-year-old son, two different wives for all the listeners out there. The girl had different needs than the boy, right? They each have their own craziness that you have to deal with. And what you learn is the message that you are sending, the message I, Jeff, am sending, is not always the message that child is receiving. Also, the way I speak to this 24-year-old is not the way I speak to that 12-year-old. And when you become a leader, you learn not everyone hears the same. Not everyone learns the same. Not everyone can be spoken to the same. And if that person, like that social media person, isn't doing the job the way you want, well, haven't we all been at a job or on a sports team or in an environment where we were the oddball? We were the one who didn't get it and wasn't doing right. And either we were ostracized and made to feel like dirt, or somebody took us under their wing. Now, I'm not telling you to put up with anyone's garbage for 16 months. That is not what I'm saying. But the first step in being a leader is owning the problem. It's not that person's fault they're doing it badly. As the leader, did I give clear instructions? Did I teach them well enough? How was their training? Social is a great example. So I did it for so long when I hired someone new in social. Unfortunately for them, they're not allowed to post anything without me seeing it for X amount of time until I feel like they got it, and then I let them go free. But you're hiring people for a reason. You chose this employee for a reason. Now, the reason might have been I feel like I can bulldoze them and get them to do what I want. Wrong reason, but we all hire someone like that. But you're hiring people to do something. You have to let them do it. The only place I put a caveat to that is in social, because their voice has to be that same voice that you want. My first hire in social, I got somebody who had her own opinion about what our voice should be. And I was so busy growing the brand. This is 2018. We just been acquired. I'm like, sure, you go do it. Destroyed the brand. Total wrong voice, total different idea of how we should be doing things. When I let that person go, I didn't hire someone immediately. I took it back. I got the voice back to where I wanted. I got it set up the way I wanted. So the leadership point part, just to go back to your question, your statement, is as leaders, we have to take on the responsibility of the success of the employee. You got to invest in these people. And if you're not willing to invest in them, then you didn't hire the right person. That's the real issue.
Well, or you haven't set people up for success. So I've done 300 plus interviews and did reasonably well myself. And I can tell you that the only thing that I've taken away from all of this is systems. Right. It's that, like, in order for you to do social media, and granted, for you, it's intuitive, it's passive, so it doesn't feel like a system, but it is, right? Like,
Yep.
you do
Yep.
this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And like, you're never going to be able to effectively delegate until you've parsed out that system. And if you've ever built a system from scratch, and I know you have, and I'm sure a bunch of people listening have as well, it is an exhausting process. Nothing drains you. Like coming up with like an 82-step process only to realize you missed 40 steps that need to be added to it, you know? It's thankless. But so much of I think our inability to delegate comes from our inability to effectively create systems. And I've got to believe based on the ecosystem that you have thrived in, that you're really good at that too, yeah?
Well, I'm really good at creating the system. I am terrible about documenting the system.
Mm.
You know, and I'm great about saying, okay, I've taught you now. You go write the system, give it to me, and I'll give you feedback on it. But I'm not the person to sit there and document it. And you know, this is a great segue that you're bringing into. So we have all these locations that are serving our food as dark kitchens. And what we're learning is we create something new. We run it in our three brick and mortars. We're all in Chicago with the three brick and mortars. We can get anything up and running in 6 minutes. Anything, 6 minutes. Well, now we started whatever way we're going to train 700 restaurants around the country in Canada that we're not going to ever visit there. It's going to be online or in paper only. That's how we now need to train our stores. And we've launched two products in the last 6 weeks doing it that way. It has been the most agonizing and painful experience for my team of these three stores because all we want to do, right? We want to walk in there and show them, this person how to do it. Like, just do it this way. And I won't let them do it. I won't let them do it. Give them the piece of paper, taste it. It's not right. Rewrite the process, hand them a new process, do it again. And so it's a learning curve, but it is, to your point, the most important part of the learning curve.
And then let's talk about that because I think you bring up a great point. So there's also going to be clarity of vision. You have to know where you're going because then I think it makes all of the discomfort in the present moment worth it. But you talk to so many people in our industry, and I'm sure generally as well, that lack that clarity of vision. That when you say, where do you want to be 12 months from now? They don't have a clear answer, but they're still trying things and developing things and iterating things, but without a really clear vision of where they're going. They'll listen to this and they'll launch their own line of NFTs, but not with a result in mind. So much of what I think we do is we borrow from our neighbors. My neighbors at the bar in Hollywood, they had a Taco Tuesday that was just through the roof. So we created a tiny Tuesday to compete. Um, and I didn't have any goals as it related to sales metrics at this margin or all of this, right? I wanted to win. I wanted to be as busy as
Sure.
they were on that particular day of the week, but it did not serve me well. Um, how do you go about developing that long-term vision? And then more importantly, having like the consistency and the discipline to ignore everything that falls outside of that vision.
Yeah, that's a multifaceted question right there. So I'll start off with, the idea about, like you said, with metrics. So the social team, right? When I say social, I one person is social, but they work in hand with the marketing department and they want to run a contest. They want to grow X amount of followers. So they want to give away tickets to some show and we want to get followers out of it. And when I always say, okay, just so I know, how many followers do you want to get out of the contest? I don't know. Well, no, no, no. Just pick a number. What's the number? So at the end of the contest, was it successful? Right? And we learn and then we adjust the next one. If the answer is I want 50 followers, don't do the contest. It's not worth the price of the admission for the tickets, right? So get a real number and let's find success. And then when you talk about, as the lofty goals, so I have a leadership team that I built now where you have the CFOs in it, head of HRs in it, head of business development, head of supply chain, head of culinary, head of marketing, head of my dark kitchen program, and IT. There's nine of us. We meet every Monday morning. Those nine people, they understand where we're going more than anybody else. They understand it. They have to live it, they have to breathe it, they have to believe in it. I don't think you give your 5-year plan to your other employees. They can't wrap their hands around it. They probably in their mind can't imagine they're going to be with you in 5 years. I hope they will. But when you're young and it's your first or second job in life, you don't assume you. When I got hired, Let Us Entertain You, I didn't know I was going to be celebrating 30 years. Right? You don't think in those grand scheme. And right now, when I interview people and they say, "What's your 5 year plan for Wildbound?" My answer is, "Well, no one saw COVID coming. So I don't have a 5 year plan for Wildbound. I can tell you what I want Wildbound to be. And if it takes one day or 10 years, I don't know, but this is where I want us to get to." So you have to get a strong team around you that all understands this is the goal, this is the North Star, this is where we want to get to. And does this idea help us or hurt us get there? Google has this thing, at least they used to do, where every employee had 80% of their day was on what Google told you to do, and you had 20% of free time. And that's where a lot of the great Google stuff came out of people's 20. I don't really give people an 80-20 day. I don't do that. But everybody has their job, right? Business development has to grow the number of units, right? And supply chain is to make sure it doesn't break and so on. So if your job's working and it's going, and all of a sudden you saw a shiny object, and we all love the shiny object, how much effort goes into the shiny object and what's the reward of the shiny object? That's really the question. And then when you have this great team like I do, I can give the NFTs to the marketing department and they run with it. Supply chain doesn't need to do that. But oh, I want to get frozen grocery. We have a frozen grocery line. Supply chain, why don't you start talking to grocery stores and selling the product? Oh, business development, get us some more airports. I don't need business development selling NFTs. So then you have me as the leader. I have 9 different people or 8 different people, and they each have a goal to achieve or 2 goals to achieve. And all of a sudden now, it's not one goal for Wildbow to get from here to there. It's 18 goals divided amongst 10 people. And that's manageable and that's scalable. And that's how we're able to take on vending machines and everything else that we have going on.
Let's talk about the greatest hurdle in business, maybe ever. That Monday morning stand up. Uh, Meetings
I thought
are
it was
just
running out of money, but okay.
no, right? Both. Well, one I think has a direct impact on the other. Communication, I think, is an issue in business in general. And there's nothing more demotivating than a shitty meeting, right? Where the guy that calls the meeting feels like it was a waste of time. Everybody there feels unheard and like it's a waste of time. You know, it's you've got to get a lot out of that time together in order to make it worth it on a weekly basis to keep people engaged, motivated, focused, and that they walk out with clear action items and a sense of purpose. What does the structure for a successful weekly meeting look like for you?
So I have 2 main meetings with the team. Monday morning, well, I have 3 meetings that are my must meetings for the week. The first one is Monday morning. First thing in the morning, my CFO and I go through cash. Where are we at with cash? What's coming in? What's going out? Just where are we? It's a 15-minute call. Then I have the hour-and-a-half meeting with the leadership team. And it's structured into who goes in what order. And I go last, and I don't speak. They're always like the end. My CFO runs it, right? He's in charge of that meeting. He sends out the meeting invite. He makes sure that everybody, is keeping up on whatever they said they had to do from last week or whatever it may be. And at the end of it, they're like, "We're done unless you have anything, Jeff." That meeting is not for me because I have my one-on-ones with everybody all week long. That meeting is so all the leadership hears what everyone else is working on. And each person has however much time they need. Some people are done in 30 seconds, some people are done in 5 minutes. Here's what I'm working on, here's what's coming up, here's what I need help with. That's that meeting. The third meeting is done on Wednesdays, middle of the week, and that's a projects meeting. So it's those same people with 1 or 2 other people might be added in. And that is what are the major projects that the company is working on? And where are you at with your project? And that project has deadlines and dates, and you have everyone in the room. So if you get stuck or you need help or you have a question or whatever it may be, everyone knows what's going on and everyone's holding everyone accountable to that due date. And those are that's how I structure those. I mean, again, I don't speak in that. I don't have any due dates. I got nothing to do. I'm just giving direction, right? But I get to know where everybody's at, what the roadblocks are, how I can help, what resources they need that they can't get. And so you're you look at a professional basketball team. Yeah, in the huddle, right? When they have a timeout, the coach is sort of sitting on the floor and saying, "This is the play we're going to draw up." But a lot of times, all they're doing is calling a timeout so the players can like regroup. And that's how I look at my leadership meeting. It's a way for them to connect and for them to regroup. It is not about me having my voice heard. If I want my voice to be heard, I can talk anytime I want. That meeting is for the leadership team to get connected. And that is how I think you run the right meeting. Now, you have to have an agenda. You got to keep them focused, right? You don't want to be talking about who's going out where next weekend, right? But you got to let them do their job.
Let's talk about your job. So, I mean, I'm sure you've seen this a lot, especially as you've worked to grow the company. Um, I think many of us are busters with financing, right? You right? You
Great.
work
I,
your way.
I might steal that. I might
Okay,
steal that. That's
do
amazing.
it. But it's true, right? Like it's I know the Canlis brothers reasonably well graduated from Cornell University, like deeply steeped in the restaurant industry on a generational level. Um, but most of us are busters with financing, right? With no traditional education. We've worked our way up through the ranks, and then eventually some poor guy decides to give us money to start our own restaurant. And the dream is to become a restaurateur. And the day you open the restaurant, you go back to being a restaurant manager because that's what you've done. That's what you're really good at. And we exist within an industry that prides hard work, right? Not really results, but just effort in hard work. And if you're working 50 hours a week, it's a part-time job. And it's really easy to fall into that trap, especially with all of the cultural stigma around it. But that's not how you grow. That's not how you that's not how you grow as a leader, but that's also not how you scale a company effectively. And so one of the things that I talk about a lot on the show is like, what does a restaurateur do for a living? So if all these other people are doing all of the other jobs that you had at some point, what do you do now, Geoff?
Yeah, great question. So, just as an example, to go back to what you said, I majored in art history in college, right? None of us know what we're doing. Look, one thing that I do have happen, and I've been doing this since for years now, is every quarter, every 3 months, every person in the home office must work 2 shifts in the restaurant, right? You need to touch the guest, you need to touch the employee, and you need to eat the food. We also, every Wednesday, we bring in Wow Bao. We call it Wow Bao Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we bring in the food to the home office. So we're up to date with the food and eating it. And I think it's just really important as the leader to show that we're not just sitting in office and what we do doesn't matter. The decisions we make affect all of our guests. And right now, because of all of our locations in the airports, we're doing well over 4,000 people a week. You know, I take that back. We're doing well over 4,000 people a day. Sorry.
Oh my
So the
God.
decisions we make has impact. Now, when you ask what is it I do all day, I am the luckiest guy on earth because I get to talk to people like you. I get to be the face of a brand that has been successful because of the hard work that my people are doing. It's a team win. And whether it's fortunately for me or unfortunately for them, I get to be the face of it. Now, I also get the brunt of it if something goes wrong. I mean, I have to be prepared for that. But what do? I am a cheerleader to my team. I am the person who makes sure that people are surpassing their personal goals. And I am the person who makes sure that whatever the job is that someone's working on, I push it further than they think they can take it. I mean, that's what the job is all day. I am a restaurateur at heart. I want to be on the floor. I want to be shaking hands and talking to people and sending out food. I mean, that is the joy. Going back to my kids, I made it very clear to my daughter she can't work in a restaurant. Now, she bartends occasionally and she served and hosted when she was younger, right? When going through school. But it's not a life that I wanted her to have because all of her friends are going to have the nights off and the holidays. And it's a tough business. It's a tough business. It's not made for everybody. We all want the glamour associated with it. It's nothing cooler to saying I'm an investor in a restaurant or I own a restaurant. Greatest freaking thrill in the world. But what is my job? I sit here and I talk to you. That's my job. And tell how great my team is. That's what I have to do every day is tell everyone how great my team is.
The restaurant industry is filled with unspoken rules and traditions about how things should be done. How would you like to see our industry turn the tables to create a better future for all of us?
Wow, that's like a serious question you just asked.
It is.
I wasn't prepared for that. I mean, we're having this nice, fun time, and you just took the conversation somewhere else. And
It's
you,
the last question I
I
ask on
know, but
every
like,
episode.
that's the kind of question I think you need to like prep somebody with,
Right.
you know?
No, this is it. It's authentic communication. You spent 30
Yeah.
years in the industry, right? And we've seen good, bad, and ugly over the years together, especially in our generation. We are in the midst of this
You know,
massive conversion.
the I'll give you the real positive that I feel about the industry and the thing that I'd like to see different. So the real positive is what I touched on earlier. Just the collaboration is just absolutely fantastic. And I speak a lot and I travel to a lot of conferences and I have made some really good friends from going to these conferences. And I don't believe that X amount of years ago it would have been the same. I sort of remember going to conferences and no one talked to each other. They came in, they sat down and they paid attention to wherever the speaker went and they all left. And now it's like it's a reunion party every time you go. And I just think that's part of where we're coming out of and what's so important of what we learned from the pandemic. Now, I got two things I want to see change in the industry that I think are very important. The first is, which I don't think can happen, and this is a lofty goal, and it's not a negative or by any means, but the restaurant industry was built as a way to as a stepping stone to your future, right? We were in school and you needed to make extra money, so you worked as a fry cook or you worked as a server or you were an actor and you were in between and so you worked in a restaurant, right? And these were people who needed the money and worked really hard for it to achieve a future goal. And what's happened over because of just before the pandemic and then the pandemic killed it was the industry had become a place for you to feed a family of four. But the wages don't equal feeding the family of four. And by the way, the business was never made to support that. And that's really affecting a lot of smaller businesses because they can't afford to pay people. And the people who are going for the jobs shouldn't be going for those jobs. That's not how this industry is made. And it's putting people out of business, which I think is a terrible thing. And then my realistic one that we could definitely fix and improve upon, which I think is extremely important, and I talk about this a lot, is right now today, it has never been more expensive than operate a restaurant, except it won't be as expensive as it is tomorrow. The money that we are charging our guests to dine out, and because of the pandemic and people want to work at home or they don't want to work the hours, whatever it may be, we're all short on employees. And those employees we have, some of them are taking the job because they can't find another job. They're not restaurant industry is not in their blood as it was when I was growing up from a server, bartender, host standpoint. We as the restaurant industry are not giving the level of hospitality that we used to. And when people say, what kind of business are you in? You could say you're in the restaurant industry, you could say you're in the food business, but pre-pandemic, we were all in the hospitality business. And that has eroded and it is terrible that that's gone away. And when people were coming out of the pandemic and they were struggling and they didn't know how they were going to survive, I kept saying to people, it's like when you open your very first restaurant, you need to be on the floor. You need to be talking to every guest. You need to be showing the employee you're standing side by side. You need to work as hard, if not harder than them. When they're getting beaten up because of something, you need to jump in there and protect your employees. And you need to reteach hospitality. We are also inundated with technology. Technology erodes hospitality. It just does. You know, instead of calling up a restaurant to make a reservation, you can't call a restaurant for reservation. You call a restaurant, they say press one for reservations. You press one, it says please go to our website, right? Or you get a chat bot, and there's some really good chat bots out there. But as soon as you go 17 questions in there and you ask that 18th question about like something, you realize you're talking to a chat bot. I love technology for our industry. I love technology, period. And I get beaten up for coining this phrase, hospitality, which is where I want to see the merger of technology and hospitality working together. Right now, there's an imbalance. In our industry, I implore all of your listeners get back to hospitality. That is what made our industry great. That is why people return to our restaurants. That is why people want to work in our environment, because of the interaction. It's like we forgot how to make people feel special. And we need to get back to making them feel special.